So at TRANSACT, we know that discussions among networks and processors and fintechs are all focused on developing new interfaces, like we talked about right here, and of course, better security, all designed to drive commerce for consumers and merchants. Now, the payments industry, of course, constantly needs new tools and new technologies to meet the growing cybersecurity and fraud threats that merchants face online and in store. We all know that 70% of US spending is done electronically by consumers. $478 billion in e-commerce expected in 2018. We have to meet consumer demands to ensure simplicity, speed, and security across all e-commerce platforms. To talk about this more, and to, once again, make a little news here at TRANSACT, I'm pleased to welcome Jess Turner. Jess is the Executive Vice President of Digital Payments and Labs for North America at MasterCard. You all know MasterCard last night named the Business Partner of the Year by ETA, so congratulations again to them. In North America, Jess leads strategy, commercialization, and product management of digital payments products, and she's also responsible for customer digital engagement with key issuers globally. She leads a product development and engineering team to collaborate with the largest global issuers worldwide to advance payments. And she's here to talk to us about the next generation of secure e-commerce. Please join me in welcoming Jess Turner.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here with me so early. I don't know about you, but there was no coffee in my hotel room. So this morning, the first thing I did was go to the lobby and find the nearest coffee shop and put my credit card in the terminal and buy myself a much-needed cup of caffeine. Then I ran to my room to get ready to be here with you today and realized it was my best friend Camilla's birthday, and I once again failed to send her anything. So I went to my mobile device and I bought her some flowers. Once I was finished getting ready, I stayed at a different hotel. I had to get here. So I picked my favorite taxi app, called a taxi, and then paid digitally. Many of you here have had a similar morning. Some of you may have decided to get a healthy smoothie instead of a cup of caffeine, so good for you. Others may have hit the slot machines instead of coming directly here. But regardless, your world was likely physical and digital, all in the same this morning. And the reason for that is because we as consumers every day are going to have physical and digital activities in our lives where we need a way to pay. Now, as a consumer, you want the same consistent, secure, ubiquitous way to pay, whether that's physical or digital. It really doesn't matter to you. In the physical world, we afford consumers that today. Many of you in this room have enabled that. You walk into a terminal, you know how to pay, it's secure, it's transparent, and it's ubiquitous. We've done that leveraging the EMVCo standards work of chip and PIN and contactless. This has allowed a ubiquitous experience globally. Merchants have a single integration to offer their consumers a way to pay for all the networks they decide they want to pay with. This is how consumers expect to pay. In the digital world, we have a little ways to go. Digital transactions continue to grow. Last year alone, digital transactions grew by over 20%. I expect that trend to continue, as I'm sure many of you do. But the user experience isn't perfect all the time. Think about yourself, the last time you had to buy something quickly on your mobile device and you had to key enter all of your credential information on that small screen. And we have some opportunities in security. For MasterCard, we have 4 key principles to our digital strategy. Best-in-class customer experience through consumer choice, security, transparency, and privacy. If you think about it, that's what our brand stands for around the world. Consumer experience through consumer choice is critical. We just talked about key entry. It's not ideal, so as a result, consumers are leaning towards card on file. MasterCard has enabled the ecosystem, whether that be with merchants, digital partners, third-party wallets, to put a best-in-class user experience into the hands of consumers for their digital journey. However, not every merchant wants to offer card on file. And not every consumer wants to put their credentials in a merchant environment or a third-party wallet. So as a result, MasterCard has decided to evolve MasterPass's checkout mechanism to support the Secure Remote Commerce Standard recently introduced by EMVCo in October of 2017. The Secure Remote Commerce Standard, which you'll often hear referred to today as SRC, is about an open platform that is platform agnostic, but enables a streamlined, ubiquitous, consistent experience in the digital journey of a consumer. In addition to that, it's about a streamlined integration for merchants, and it's a platform for us to scale EMVCo tokens in this digital journey, increasing the security of these transactions. Much like a physical terminal on the merchant's counter today, we believe that SRC can bring together this experience with one common, consistent checkout button. For all complying networks, you can have one common, consistent checkout button, making checkout easier for consumers and easier for merchants to integrate. The coexistence of competing digital checkouts, whether it be card on file, a third-party wallet, or maybe the Secure Remote Commerce Standard, is a good thing. It's a good thing for consumers and merchants because it enables choice. Another key principle, like I mentioned before, of MasterCard is securing every transaction. Securing every transaction is critical to what people expect from all of us in this room. We started this tokenization journey to meet that need about 4 years ago. So as a result, the mass majority of US consumer cards can be tokenized today. This makes a token-only world in reach. This advancement, whether it be putting a token in a device, a merchant, a commerce platform, has great advancements for our industry and for the consumer. By using tokens, fraudsters, if they get the credentials, it's rendered useless. There's nothing they can do with that. It reduces the risk burden on merchants. For consumers and merchants and all alike, it takes away the dependency of the changes on the physical plastic, whether that be number, expiration date, on making sure the digital transaction goes through. And this should increase approval rates. But lastly, but importantly, it's incredibly important as an industry, we think about being transparent with our consumers. Consumers deserve the right to know where their card credentials are being stored and how they're being used. Tokens are the most efficient way to do this. The most efficient way to do this. So the reason I'm here today is to talk to everyone as an industry, to say, how do we come together where it makes sense, to tokenize where it makes sense, and also to standardize where it makes sense. MasterCard, the cornerstone of our strategy is that we are a partner-centric business. We are a B2B2C business. So we believe in standardization where it makes sense, checkout and security. But we will continue to execute against our digital roadmap like we have been doing, and we will create, build, and distribute differentiated products and services through our customers to give to their consumers in this digital journey. My belief is many people in this room share many of these principles and beliefs. Best-in-class customer experience through consumer choice, security, transparency, and privacy. So it's a call to action as an industry, whether you're a PSP, a gateway, a merchant, a digital partner, an acquirer, or an issuer, to come together and support the Secure Remote Commerce Standard to get to one common, consistent checkout button for our consumers, and also to bring us to a token-only world. So with that, I'd like to take the chance to welcome the rest of the panelists here today, to have them share a little bit about their thoughts on the same topic.
Thanks, Jess.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's continue the conversation, shall
Great,
we, about
sounds
digital
great.
commerce. I'll sit here.
Okay.
And I'll invite you to sit here.
Okay.
And then I will invite onto the stage to join us for this continuation of our conversation. T.S. Anil, who's the global head of payment processing products for Visa. Amy Parsons, who's the senior vice president and head of global acceptance and customer experience at Discover Financial Services. And Garrett Goff, who is the global payments and fraud and analytics lead for Netflix. So please join me in welcoming these three panelists to the stage. Hi, TS. Welcome. Amy.
Hi.
Yeah, I think you're sitting next to me.
Garrett.
Sure.
Please.
Love to.
All right. So it's a day of news here at TRANSACT. So thanks, Jess, for bringing that here and walking us through this. But having heard from the provider side about what this is, let's hear from the merchant side about what this means. So Garrett, from Netflix perspective, as a e-commerce merchant that I think everyone in the room is familiar with, so we can probably dispense with the biography of the company. If you had to kind of narrow this down to two things, really, just two things as far as online e-commerce pain points, if you will, for merchants and consumers, what are the two things that this really addresses and solves?
Yeah, I think, a big one for me is, imagine it's Friday evening and I get home and there's a new season of Stranger Things out, but my card's been replaced, as happens, right? There's this world in which plastic replacements still matter to many users, even in markets where there are products like Account Updater. It's not perfect, and there's still challenges we all face. And I think that's, for us, one of the biggest challenges in well-developed, established markets is consumers having to deal with their cards being replaced and having to come to a merchant site and swap them out and have failures and lost service. It's not just for us, it's for any card-on-file merchant. So I think that's something that's been quite challenging, and that's something that we've already observed card-on-file tokenization starting to solve. Outside the US, I spent a few months living in Southeast Asia late last year and started to get a feel for consumer fear around shopping online or around paying online, or at least, if not fear, maybe some hesitation and maybe a lack of trust to a mild degree. And I think that's something that's going to be really interesting to see solved over time as we sort of improve general trust and security in the ecosystem. And that's, again, something that tokenization starts to solve. If consumers no longer are concerned around credentials being lost or around an inability to control where their card details go, I think that's going to be a pretty compelling use case for them over the long run in emerging markets.
Terrific. And Amy, you're in your role at Discover, you're what I like to think of as a token evangelist. You talk a lot about tokenization and the importance of moving, particularly in the e-commerce environment, to tokenization. And Jess obviously talked about how SRC is really focused on moving tokenization forward for e-commerce. Can you talk to us a little bit about, from Discover's perspective, how this is going to help get us to the tokenization world we all want to be in for e-commerce?
Yeah, I think it's not only just about tokens, it's actually about securing the entire e-commerce environment and all the different channels, right, that are showing up today. And many of you are creating a lot of those experiences. So when we think about what we're trying to do in particular for both the consumer and the merchant side of the business, we're trying to create a very dynamic kind of payload, if you want to call it that, of payment credentials that's dynamic and is no longer static and will constantly refresh and replace itself right at that moment of transaction. Tokens are a critical component of that because we can actually replace them real time. So they show up whenever it is we need to push them out to whatever place it is people are transacting. And I think at the end of the day, probably the most important piece to a consumer that tokens brings, and it's something that's hidden from them that they can't actually really appreciate until their card's lost or stolen, is tokens can just automatically go out to the rest of the world, wherever you have stored credentials sitting, and replace it with a token. So as a consumer, everything's always on, will always work, and you don't have to take any action whatsoever in order to actually replace what was a stolen card, if we want to actually talk about plastics. So I think tokens help bring to life a lot of this real-time, dynamic, very secure interface with a very high convenience structure for consumers.
And TS, from Visa's perspective, from the product perspective, and I should have noted, congratulations to you on your new global role and product. I know you're only 2 weeks into it, but and this SRC announcement is 10 minutes old. But what's Visa's perspective on what this brings to e-commerce and security and convenience and helping address merchant pain points?
Sure. So I mean, as a payment industry geek like all of us in this room, I'm still constantly amazed, right? You show up in a little upcountry village in Thailand, and you know that your payment experience is going to work in a consistent way because somebody took the time over the last several decades to define exactly what that piece of plastic was going to look like in the physical world. The dimensions, where the chip goes, where the mag stripe goes, and all of that stuff. And yet, when you look at the digital commerce experience today, right, there's inconsistency. There's, as a consumer and a merchant, you don't know exactly how things are getting secured. Standards around, data payloads don't exist today, and so on. So, as Visa, we strongly endorse, EMVCo's Secure Remote Commerce standards, as Jess talked about a few minutes ago, which came out last fall. And these standards are incredibly important for the industry, and they're a big breakthrough because you move from a world where data security standards don't exist and all of this stuff is confusing for consumers and expensive for merchants to integrate, to a world where the security standards are prescribed, how data gets captured, transported, stored gets prescribed, right? And I think that sets the bedrock for all kinds of innovation in the world to come, right? Digital commerce is evolving, as we know, Jess's story about the physical and digital interaction. Those worlds are blurring, right? Digital commerce is going to be, blended with physical commerce. And it's incredibly important that we have a set of standards that the whole industry can innovate on. So Visa is announcing today our digital commerce program, which is in essence building off of the Secure Remote Commerce standards and migrating our Visa checkout platform to those single standards and creating the technology and the resources for everybody in the ecosystem, merchants, acquirers, gateways, commerce platforms, to build with us on those standards and really take the leap forward into this world of standard, secure digital commerce.
Yeah, and Jess, TS mentioned this. I think this is important to emphasize. What we're talking about here is really the implementation of EMVCo standards. So can you help us understand what this means in practice? As a consumer, we all know we go to e-commerce sites and we see, frankly, multiple card brand buttons on the e-commerce checkout page. And it sounds like we're moving to a different world as we implement these EMVCo standards. So tell us a little bit about what we're now going to see going forward as we implement these EMVCo standards, what that means for what the consumer is going to see when they go through this e-commerce experience.
Sure. So, I tried to bring it to life when I was talking earlier, but, really what I think the consumer is going to see is what they're used to in the physical world, right? They see one terminal, they use it regardless of how they're paying. That's really what this is. This is about the consumer going through a digital journey and seeing one way to pay that's consistent, both at recognize the way to check out. So that's, where we believe at MasterCard that SRC can help us bring this experience together with one consistent checkout button. But it's also about the flow, the digital flow of the consumer. So even after that, how does the transaction complete in the digital world, and what are those steps? And I think that's what the consumer will see globally, which is a consistent experience, so that they feel safe and secure in knowing that their transaction is working like it should.
And what, obviously we're an audience of acquirers and processors and ISOs and VARs and PayFacs and ISVs and, the entire sales channel to merchants. And many in the room have e-commerce merchant customers. What's your message to that channel and what people should start to be talking about to their e-commerce merchant customers as SRC is implemented this year?
Sure. I think, you want me to take that?
Yeah.
Okay. So what we should be talking about is this is an extension of what we're doing already, right? So many of you have been helping us support the digital journey and making the user experience better. That's what we've been doing with MasterPass. What we see is from evolving MasterPass to also support this standard, it's just an evolution of what you're doing today. And that's the message from a secure remote commerce standard. The other is to start to receive and understand how to take dynamic data so you can benefit from tokenization.
Can I just add to
And
what
TS, so Visa's perspective on what you're telling the channel to talk to e-commerce merchants about.
Sure. I mean, from our perspective, this is an effort to solve some of the biggest pain points that exist in the ecosystem. So if you're a merchant, right, today you're integrating with multiple different kinds of platforms. Conversion rates are a challenge. Authentication and authorization rates are a challenge. Right? What this does is actually solves those pain points, makes integration simpler for a merchant. With tokenization and the 3D secure part of it being part of the overall standards, you create an environment where conversion rates, authentication, authorization rates should all improve. So I think it's a big breakthrough for us as an industry to move there.
Yeah, Amy?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an efficiency play. I think if you look and you start saying, well, I have to do 5 things today, you'll have to do 1 tomorrow. That's a huge operational lift, I think, for everybody in this room. The technology we're talking about here is incredibly complex. We talk about it as if it's a simple, really easy thing, but all of you know how hard it is to build. So if we only have to build 1 thing, that gives us time to actually use that technology space, work more on the consumer interface, their engagement structure, and really for the merchants, right, being able to work on their interaction around commerce in general. I do want to just add, though, there is still a lot of work to be done on this. So we talk about it, it is real, it is coming, but the technical framework will be released later today, and we are looking for engagement, right? I think it will take all of us to make sure that this works truly from end to end with all the various players, right? It could be anywhere from 3 players to 10 players that touch a transaction in sub-split seconds. And so I think we really encourage feedback. We look, right, to talk to merchants, to all the different people in this room that play in the different components of the channel to really make sure that this is a very high, secure solution that's very efficient for everybody.
And before I go to Garrett with the last word on the merchant perspective here, Amy, people are having trouble locating the Discover Lounge. Can you?
Yeah, I was going to say, just stand up and turn around.
Can you
and
tell
if
me,
you didn't
can you tell me
notice-
where it is? So Netflix perspective, last word as we get ready to implement this, how this is going to change the experience for your customers.
Yeah, sure. So SRC as a concept is still quite new to us. We've heard about it extremely recently, I'll say. However, a core sort of back-end component of that is the ability to support card-on-file tokenization. And that's something that we do need to see growth in even a market like the US, where that is not new to us. We've been doing that now for some time directly with the schemes. I think anything we can do to help drive that support more greatly, even in a market like the US, is a great thing. And anything we can do to help support that, even as a merchant, we will work on with issuers and with the schemes and with other parts of the ecosystem. So I think we would love to see that grow quickly, and again, that's sort of a core component for making, I believe, SRC work over the long run as well.
And have you finished Lost in Space yet?
Oh, absolutely. It's wonderful.
It's fantastic.
I loved
So
it.
as a child of the 70s, I'm looking forward to watching the reboot. So thanks for doing that and the other 200 original programs that Netflix does to help fill our long plane rides with no more video
flights,
entertainment.
yes.
All right. So very interesting announcement. Jess, thanks for opening us up and walking us through it. TS, Amy, Garrett, thanks for helping us understand what SRC means, these EMV code standards that are going to change e-commerce for the better. So please join me in thanking our terrific panelists.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
Sorry. Thanks.